If you are one of those people who think that you cannot get through the divorce process without hating each other, then I'm here to tell you that that is not true. This video is all about sharing tips to help you and your spouse get through the divorce process in a peaceful, loving, or amicable way, because it is actually possible. When I hear people saying there's no such thing as an amicable divorce, it's super annoying because I know it's not true. As a certified divorce financial analyst, my goal is to help people reduce the cost of their divorce, understand the financial implications, and also understand that there is a way to divorce in a peaceful and loving way. So let's talk about that. When you think about what celebrities do when they are going through a divorce or getting ready to go through a divorce, they usually release a press release or statement that says, it's unfortunate that we have decided to end our marriage and we love each other, we care about each other, and we want you to respect our privacy. In today's world, on social media, people have a lot of different reactions to those press releases. But one of the reasons that celebrities do that is because they are taking the time to at least attempt to set the narrative. And it's actually a strategy that everyday people can use. So when you're thinking about how to get through the divorce process in a more amicable and loving way, one of the key elements is setting the foundation for a peaceful divorce, which means that there are very intentional things that you need to do. And one of those things is helping people understand what you need from them and how they can support you. But before you get to people that are outside of your marriage, let's talk about the person that's in your marriage, and that's your spouse. Maybe your soon-to-be ex, though. When you're setting the intention for your divorce, you ultimately want to make sure that you are trying to find the best ways to keep lines of communication open and keep the costs down. And part of the way in which you can do that is by establishing ground rules. I know that it may not always work out this way, but establishing ground rules and making your intentions known with your soon-to-be ex. So that means you are intentional about making a statement to say, hey, I know we're getting ready to go on the divorce journey. We really care about each other. We've had some great years together. We know that we'll be happier apart than together. Ultimately, we're just trying to get to the other side of a brighter future and not tear each other down. And I want you to know that that's my intention. That's just an example statement, but it can be sent in a text message. It can be sent in an email. But it's setting the foundation to allow your soon-to-be ex to know, well, this is how they plan to go through the divorce process. Whether it comes to fruition or not is a totally different story. But we're talking about the work that needs to be done up front in order to set the foundation for having an amicable divorce. Now that you've gotten that out of the way, we can talk about the people that are outside of your marriage. So back to the celebrity strategy. When it comes to announcing your divorce, you actually want to use a very similar strategy that celebrities use. Now, you don't need to release a press statement or public statement on social media. You can, but it's actually not necessary. What you want to do is communicate to those who are closest to you about the things that you'll need going through the process, how you expect for them to behave, and some of the things that you don't want as far as the process is concerned. So maybe you don't want everyone all in your business. Maybe you don't want everyone asking you a bunch of questions. Maybe you only plan to provide updates when everything is over. Whatever your intention is to go through the process, hopefully that you and your spouse and soon-to-be ex can agree on, then that is what you need to communicate to people that care about you. Ultimately, most people in your family or friend circle don't want to be involved in your divorce, and they definitely don't want to be involved in your divorce if it's messy. But if you're letting them know that you're intending to have a peaceful divorce or an amicable divorce, then they will likely be supportive of that if they really care about you. If they just want to stir up trouble, then it's time to take them out of the information loop. Now, if you're looking for ways to do this and ways to communicate this, then I invite you to grab our Divorce Support Pack. The Divorce Support Pack was created to support pre- and post-divorce women, and it offers a few different things that I just talked about. So one, you get help with understanding the main steps of going through the divorce process. If the average divorce takes about a year to get through, that can be a long time, and some divorces take even longer. So you want to understand the steps that you'll be going through so you have a way to manage your expectations. The Divorce Support Pack also includes descriptions of allies and professionals who can support you while you're going through the process. So you know exactly who they are and what they do. It also includes example scripts that you can tweak however you'd like to, that you can use with your family and friends when you're planning to announce your divorce. And also some of the commonly missed financial considerations during the divorce process. There are even a few post-divorce resources in there for you to think about. Ultimately, the Divorce Support Pack is a complimentary offer that is provided by the firm Approach, intended to help you gain peace of mind as you're going through the divorce process. Okay, so back to announcing your divorce. Again, doesn't have to be a big deal. You don't have to announce it on social media. You don't have to have a press release or a PR person to assist you with it. But if you stick to some of the ideas that I just mentioned and using some of the scripts that are in the Divorce Support Pack, then that might help you kick off your divorce process in the way that you want to. So here are the 10 ways to have an amicable divorce. Now, when you hear these 10 ways, it doesn't mean that it's an exhaustive list. There are more than 10 ways that someone can leverage in order to get through the divorce process. But the 10 ways that you will hear about are pretty common ways that people can use when they are seeking to have an amicable divorce. They're in no particular order, but let's start with number one. Number one is making sure that you are open to what's called alternative dispute resolution methods. So you hear a lot about people going to court, but most divorces are actually settled out of court, which is a great thing because it helps to keep the cost down. And so for those of you that are interested in trying to stay out of court, when you're looking into alternative dispute methods, then you may consider something like mediation, or you may consider a collaborative divorce. It just depends on what makes sense for you and your family. But make sure that you look into what those methods are, because it could be helpful for you in achieving a loving and peaceful divorce. The second thing that I want to mention, find the right emotional support circle. That could be your family and friends and a trusted group, smaller than maybe the people you would normally share everything with, because you want to contain what's happening and the information that gets out there about the divorce process until you're on the other side of it. But you also want to leverage the help of a mental health professional. And this is really important because most people will tell you that it is emotionally exhausting to go through divorce. And so you might feel really good about it one day and feel really upset about it the next. Or you might feel really good about it at 10 a.m. and then are regretting your decision at noon. And if you're not the one who initiated it, then often that comes with a whole nother set of emotions, especially if you were not expecting it. So having the right emotional support circle is crucial throughout the entire process, not just in the beginning, not just during, and then as soon as you get close to settlement, you let go of that support. You need them all the way through the post-divorce life, just to make sure that you're solid. That actually takes us to the third item, which is understanding your emotional triggers. And this is really important because more often than not, because the process is so emotional, you will likely be triggered. There is something that is going to come up while you're trying to find the happy compromise and come to a settlement agreement where you're going to be pissed off about a suggestion that was made or a demand that was made. Or there may be things that you want and it's not reasonable or it's not aligned with the laws in your state. And so that may trigger you in ways that you don't expect it. So you need to be prepared to be triggered and what to do if you are triggered, which is why I said having the right emotional and mental health support is super important. Number 4 is about understanding your partner's triggers. So there's information, if you've been married long enough, that you know about your partner and the things that will upset them or the things that they are not going to want to agree to. So you can use that information strategically to help you get through the divorce process. Number 5 is about picking mutually beneficial ways to communicate. So maybe your spouse prefers to talk on the phone and maybe you prefer text. Sometimes you can talk on the phone, sometimes you can text, but it shouldn't be one-sided. The other thing that I recommend is if you are having verbal conversations, it can be helpful to send an email to confirm the details of that conversation, just in case things get lost in translation or someone accidentally on purpose forgets what you talked about. Number 6 is about negotiating from an informed position. Understand your numbers, understand your assets, understand your debts, Understand what you are legally entitled to by speaking with a legal professional that specializes in family law, not criminal law, for example. But negotiating from an informed position can help you actually keep your costs down because you're not arguing over things that don't make sense, or you're not asking for things that don't make sense. So when you go into the process, make sure you're organized and make sure that you understand the numbers. That way, when things look a little funny, when your partner submits their financial affidavit, as an example. Number 7, refrain from oversharing. So this is actually tied to number 2 in the sense that you want to make sure that you have the right support and that is a trusted group of individuals. You can share the journey with them because sometimes you'll need that release. But I know it's really popular for people to share their divorce journey and all the personal details on TikTok and other social media platforms. That's not the thing you necessarily want to do as you're going through the process. If you do end up in court, the judge will likely not look at that favorably, so I recommend that you don't overshare information. Number 8, spend a lot of time listening. So whether it's actually in official conversations, if you're going through mediation, for example, and you're sitting down with the mediator, or when you're having unofficial conversations with your spouse and you're just trying to talk things through, listen intentionally to what they are saying. Listen intentionally to the concerns that they have. When they are trying to make certain demands, ask why, because that will help you reach a compromise much faster. As you're listening, be mindful of your responses. That is tip number 9. Being mindful of your responses and making sure that you are not speaking or responding from a position of anger or because your ego is offended by something that was said can be helpful because it can keep your fights down to a minimum. It is normal to have disagreements, but you want to have disagreements in a healthy way. And if you can have healthy disagreements while you're going through the divorce process, then that means you're more likely to be able to settle it out of court, which again means you're more likely to keep the costs down. So just be mindful of how you're responding to your spouse when you're having conversations about the divorce. And number 10, last but not least, there are usually no winners in the divorce process. Sorry, but not sorry. More than likely, you are not going to get everything that you're asking for. And so when we talk about winners and losers, that's usually both parties. You win some things you want, you lose on some other factors. Be prepared for that. Don't fight to the death about everything. As they say, pick your battles. This is one of those situations where if your intention is to have an amicable divorce, then you want to pick your battles wisely. There's a blog post that covers these 10 ways in addition to a few other key topics that come up in divorce. So that's your property division, that's child custody arrangements if you have children, and support conversations and details if you have children, child support, and if you don't, potentially spousal support, or maybe both. But there's a connection to these very common elements and the tips that I just mentioned, because some of these tips are critical when it comes to discussing those elements. So feel free to take a look at the blog post that's all about 10 ways to have a loving divorce or an amicable divorce. And the link to the blog post is in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you next time. Patience and progress always. I am Nikki Tucker with A Firm Approach.